Hey, how's it going? It's Alfred again. Going to do a video here for the Microsoft Office class. We're going to handle Word Chapter 2 from our book. So I'm going to just demonstrate the whole develop your skills exercise. And I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to go ahead and get to the book now. So I'm going to open the internet. Remember, that's how we get to our book. In the address bar, we go to bookshelf.vitalsource.com. You use the email and password that I've supplied to you. If you don't remember it, I can give you the sheet or you can contact me. Do you remember sometimes when you get into the website at the very beginning, it might be in one of the older books, might not be, you never know. But we're using the Microsoft Office 2019 and 365 book. I'm going to go ahead and click it. It's generally going to open up to the page that you left off on previously. That's okay. As a reminder, on the left-hand side, you get the different tools. I'm going to click Table of Contents. Microsoft Word is the subject. Chapter 2, Word Chapter 2, creating a resume and a table. I love doing tables. Chapter opener is going to tell us what we're going to learn in this chapter. I'll go ahead and click it. Now I'm going to go ahead and size my window. Remember, on a Windows machine, you can go up here to the titles bar, drag it off the right-hand side of the screen. It automatically takes half the screen. The other thing, if I want to get my table of contents to go away, I click here on the table of contents. I'm also just going to make it a little smaller so that I can fit the Word screen and my book, basically speaking, on the right-hand side. I'll even go a tiny bit smaller. So in creating a resume with a table, some of the learning objectives, we're going to create a table. We'll build an effective resume in a table. We'll learn how to select data in a table, format the tables, which is basically making them look really pretty. Apply table styles, a really quick, cool way to format your table, and learn a little bit about printing. Remember how the book works? If we scroll down a little bit, here's the arrow to go to the next section or next page. Technically, it's the next page, and the pages just are really long scrolling pages. So basically, what is a table? Introducing tables. Tables provide a convenient method for organizing and aligning data into an easy-to-read format. They afford a nice way to break up a text-heavy document. Formatting with table styles adds flair to your documents, and tables draw your reader's attention to key items. Just as with most actions on a computer, there are multiple ways to insert a table. All of them are located on the Insert tab of the ribbon under the Tables group. You can use the Table button, the Insert Table dialog box, and the Quick Tables gallery. I'll give you a tip here that the Quick Tables gallery only works in the Windows PC version of Microsoft Office. It does not work on Macintosh. You can even convert tabular columns to a table. So something that's typed in with the tab key separating it can be converted into a table. Once our table is in, we're going to get some contextual tabs. Remember those extra ribbons on the right-hand side that will let us do formatting to certain things that are only in context at that time. Creating new tables. Tables are organized in columns. So columns are these up-down. Rows are the left to right. And one square where they meet is known as a cell. So that's really common terminology you want to get used to. Column, up and down, row, left, right, cell, the square itself. That's going to really help when we hit Excel in our spreadsheet program. When you create a new table, you can select how many rows and columns you'd like to have. You can always add or remove rows and columns later if you end up changing your mind. It's most useful, in my opinion, you have a better idea of the number of columns because you're going to find that rows are so easy to insert at the very bottom of a table if you need to add more. Navigating and selecting data in a table. You can move the insertion point by clicking in a cell, or you can use keystrokes for navigating. Here's a couple of keystrokes that you're likely to use most often. Tab. Tab keeps moving to the right to the next square. If it gets to the end of the column, it goes down to the first square of the next row. Shift tab just happens to go left, following basically the same method as the tab key. So I'm going to go down here to develop your skills W2D1. It says start Word and create a new document using the blank document template. So I'm just going to open up Word. I have a desktop icon. If you don't, you'd have to go to Start, or you can always do a search for Word if you're on a Windows machine. Oops. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and move my window to fit next to my other window. I'm just going to drag it off the left. That's the neat trick on the Windows machine that you can use. Okay, And I think I'll make my text in the book just a hair bigger in case you're wanting to read along a little easier. Okay. So it says, develop your skills W2D1. We got started Word, but I need to click blank document according to step 1. Okay. And it says, navigate to your Word Chapter 2 folder and save the document as W2D1 Stella Resume. So I need to go to File, Save. Usually you'd want to click this PC unless you see where you want to go on the right. So I'm going to click this PC. And here it's giving me, it's already looking in my documents folder. Now this is 2019, so it looks a little bit, or actually 365, so it looks a little different. If you're more used to a dialog box, you would click Browse. So I'll do the Browse method this time because I'm already in my documents folder and can make my way in. But if I click Browse, some of you are more used to this window where this list of folders is the same folders that are actually down here, just so you know. And going in a slightly different way from my documents folder, I have an extra folder called BAS Distance Learning. You might just have your Office class files already. I teach a few different classes, so I'm going into Microsoft Office. Now here's my 2019 student files. So I'm going to go here. I go into Microsoft Word. This time we're in Word Chapter 2. So always make sure when you're saving, you're in the destination you want. We come down here and give it the file name that we want to give it, which is W2D1 Stella Resume. And I think what I'll do to try to help is I think I'll turn on a little mouse highlighter for you. And that might help us see things a little better. So down here is the file name. Up here is the location of where it's going. Now I can come over and click Save. It's doing it. And remember, after it's fully saved, you'll see the name up here in the title bar. That doesn't tell you where it is, but at least you know what you've named it. Also remember, if it helps you, you can zoom in or zoom out in the bottom right corner based upon how large you'd like to see your screen. I'm zoomed in pretty well to fit pretty much everything that I'm typing. So, step 3, choose Home, Paragraph, Show, Hide. So that's Home ribbon. So you can click it if you have to. But with the blue line under it, you kind of know. Paragraph is the group. Show hide. It looks like a backwards looking P. Now, it might be arranged slightly differently based upon the size of your window. It could be on the top row, could be wherever, but if you point to it, it says show hide. Step 4, follow these steps to insert a 2x4 table from the ribbon. So step 4A says click the Insert tab. So I now click Insert. I click the Table button, which is here in the Tables group. Step C says point in this grid, basically speaking. And we want to make one that's 2. So up here, the number needs to be 2. See how it says 2 first and then go down to 4. So it's 2 times 4. And it says it at the top of that little box. Now I'm ready to click. And I've brought in my first table. Little tip here under step C, step C says, notice that the insertion point is in the table. So my cursor is here in the table. I get these 2 extra contextual ribbons, Table Design and Table Layout. In some versions of Microsoft Office, you'll have a little bit of wording above it that says Table Tools and then Design, and Table Tools underneath it, Layout. So the book here, I think, still uses the terminology Table Tools, which technically on my version of Word isn't there. If you have 2019 or 2016, it is going to be there. The word's Table Tools. Okay. So we're going to select table elements and navigate in a table. So this is step 5 now. Apply the following selection techniques. Hover the mouse over the left margin and use the selection arrow. So when I'm in the left margin here, see I have a white tilting arrow. If I click once, it highlights that whole row. That's a really very useful thing. Step 5, the second bullet says click the move handle in the upper left corner. Well, that's this 4-headed arrow thing. And see, when I point to it, my mouse turns into a 4-headed arrow. I click. It highlights this whole big old table, no matter how big it is. If it's like 5 pages long, it's highlighted all that. It's way cool. And then the next step says hover the mouse pointer just above the top border of the table and use the black down pointing arrow. So if I point here, see that black down pointing arrow? Click one time. What did I do? I selected just the column. Step 6 says deselect by clicking anywhere in the table. Well, I'll just click in the first box. Why not? Step 6, the first bullet says use tab and shift tab to move forward and back one cell at a time. So if I press my tab key, it moved to the right one square. If I press tab again, it moved to the right again. But the problem is there was no square more to the right, so it decided to drop down to the next row. If I want to go back towards the left, I can just do shift tab. So I'm going to do it now. I'm holding shift, I press tab once, and went back to the left, which happened to be up to the last square on the right. Shift tab again brings me back to the first square. The next bullet here says do Alt page up. So I hold down the Alt key and I press page up. That gets me to basically the first square of the top of that column. If I do Alt page down, it goes to the last square of that column. Now we're going to enter some data into the table. So step 7 is just typing, and notice how all this typing of Stella Martin through with the email address is in one square. Remember, these little backwards looking P's means the enter key was pressed. Then we type the rest of the words. So I'm going to do that typing now. I make sure I'm in the first square, and I start to type in all the information for this particular person's resume. And they have 2 spaces after Ohio there, if you notice the 2 dots. Now, what will make this the link is when you move to the next box, it might make it a link, or it will make it a link if you press your space bar. I'm just going to click in the next box down because I don't actually care if it's a link or not. It doesn't really need to be a link in a true resume. And instead of clicking with my mouse, I can also use my down arrow to get to the next box down. And I'm doing it one more time here. Turn my caps lock off. And step 8 says I should save the document. So I'm going to go ahead and click my save button, or you could do file save. We're going to move on to the next portion in just a moment. So to get to the next portion of our chapter here, I'm just going to go to the little down arrow, click it, and now we've changed pages. Modifying a table. So we're in a new group section here, which is on page 23. Whenever you click in a table or select cells, rows, or columns, the contextual layout tab appears. So remember, that's up here, layout, and the design one. And that's only when your cursor's in the table. If the cursor's out of the table, those aren't showing. The way I remember these 2 contextual tabs, design is all about the beauty. Layout has all to do with the building of the table, adding rows, adding columns, taking columns away, taking rows away, column width, row height, all that kind of stuff. Making the lines show up, putting colors on the lines, adding color in the background. That's all beautifying what's there. That's the design tab. So inserting rows and columns, we could do it from the ribbon, the layout ribbon, or you could also do it from right-clicking. You're going to find that right-clicking is an easy way to do it. So you can insert new rows and columns in an existing table. You can also do these weird insert control things they have now. They're kind of hard to find, but when you get near the edge of things, you'll sometimes find these little, my tools for the recording are showing up here. So let me slide that over slightly. If I see those little pluses, those are other ways. And I don't actually personally like those. I think they make it a tiny bit trickier. And I don't think they show up on Mac. So I tend to right click is the way I tend to do it. Also, you can make a brand new row, as it says here in this paragraph. You can add a new row to the bottom of the table with the press of a tab key. So a quick and easy way to insert a single row or column are with those insert controls. They're just kind of showing there. They're showing here as a reminder with the pink lines, 3 lines in the grayish box, table tools layout, rows and columns, or right click in a table and choose insert. Merging and splitting cells and aligning data. You can merge 2 or more adjacent cells in the same row or column in a single cell. The merge option is often used to create a heading row that spans the width of the table. You can also split a single cell into multiple cells. You can split the entire table if desired. The first step is to position the insertion point anywhere in the row that you want to become the first row of the second table. So splitting tables comes useful if for some reason your data lines up in a way where you want to make part of it go onto page 2 because it looked cleaner that way. You can always rejoin the table by deleting the paragraph symbol it puts in between. That's going to also be found under table layout, the merge group, merge cells or split. Aligning data in a table, you can align data horizontally. That means between the left and the right sides of the column. And you could do it vertically between the top and the bottom lines of the cell. You find that under Table Tools Layout. So we're now on Develop Your Skills W2 D2. And in this exercise, we're going to do several different techniques to insert and delete rows. So we're going to use multiple techniques so that you could find the technique you like to use the best. As I mentioned in the previous video for Chapter 1, the book has you do a lot of these save ases for every single new Develop Your Skills exercise. I don't normally have students do that because that's not really how we build a file. It doesn't help much to have this file here where all of a sudden we're going to add rows and columns and have it with a different name, so we have two separate files. So I am skipping step number 1, and I'm going to go away from that. And I'm going to do step number 3. Insert and delete rows. Make sure the insertion point is in the table. Move the mouse pointer to the left edge of the table between the first and second rows. So between the first and the second rows is right here, just above the word objective. You see that little insert control. Step 5 says click the insert control. It added a new row in. Step 6, position the insertion point in the last table cell. So that's the very last one, this empty square. And step 6 says press tab. There's a new row now underneath experience. Step 7, use the selection arrow in the left margin to select the qualifications and experience rows. So remember, it's out here when it's a white arrow. Should be actually tilting more if I can get it. I'm unable to get it, so for some reason. So if you can't get it, just highlight the 2 rows manually. It's okay if you don't get it. It's useful if you get these little things out here, but not mandatory. Step number 8, follow these steps to insert 2 rows in the table. Step 8A, position the mouse pointer within the gray selected area, or whatever color it might be on your computer. Right-click. Step B, point to insert. Step C, insert rows above. 2 new rows on top of us. Freshness. Step 9, select the second blank row. So that's this row here. In the gray, and this part of step 9, position the mouse pointer in the gray selected area, right-click, and choose delete rows. And you got rid of it. So they wanted to show you a different technique there. Step 11, use the selection arrow to select the experience row. And then right-click in the selected gray area. Go to Insert again. This is step 12, and choose Insert Rows above. That was step 12. Step 13 says use the Insert control to insert another row at the bottom of the table. So that kind of means, it's kind of weird, but you kind of have to get right there, kind of between the 2 lines. That's why I don't like it. It's kind of finicky to get to. And click it. Now we have 2 blank rows at the bottom of the table. Step 14. Position the selection arrow to the left of the first row and select the row. So that's this row with Stella Martin and everything. Step 15, choose Table Tools, Layout, Merge cells. So remember, my version doesn't have Table Tools, it just says Table Design, and it's assumed this one over here is Table Layout. So I'm going to click Layout over here. I'm going to go to the Merge group, and I'm going to choose Merge Cells. And what that does is it combines it into one huge square. Step 16, choose Table Tools, Layout, Alignment, and then we'll be on step 17. So that's Layout, Alignment Group. These are the 9 different alignments. The top row is everything that lines up at the top. If it's on the left, it's top left, top center, top right. And you just kind of follow the pattern. These are all the middles, these are all the bottoms. The book is asking us, according to step 17, if you hover your mouse on these, they tell you what they do. Step B of step 17 says point to the middle one and click it. and it just centers, aligns everything vertically and horizontally. Step 18 is to save our changes. So you can click Save. Now we're going to size rows and columns. There's a number of techniques for resizing columns and rows. The adjust pointer, which is a double-headed arrow, appears when you position the mouse pointer on a row or column grid line. You can adjust the column width or row height by using the adjust pointer to drag the grid line. The cell size group on the contextual table tools layout tab provides handy tools for precise sizing. So if you want an exact amount, use the ribbon. You can also right-click and get to it, but the easier way for most people is just to drag the lines. So I'm going to click away so nothing's highlighted, but I clicked inside my table. Develop your skills W2D3. I'm skipping step number 1. Step number 2 should really be, if necessary, choose View, Show Ruler, because some of you might already have a ruler up here. I do not. So I am going to go here to View. In the Show group, I click Ruler. Now I can at least see some of the areas on my ruler. Now we're going to follow these steps to narrow the left column. Position the mouse pointer on the center vertical grid line. That's this line here. And you want to see that adjust arrow. See that adjust double-headed arrow? Step B says hold down your finger and drag till it covers 1.5. So that's 1.5, basically speaking. Step number 4, position the mouse pointer on the bottom of the objective row. My apologies here. So I move this down a little bit. And then now I can go to step 6, where it was look at the table size of the row below it, 0.11. I click back in the objective row. The goal is to get this 0.36. I want to click there and type 0.19, which is what the book says to do. Okay. Okay. That was step 6, 7, and 8. Sorry about that small faux pas. Now I'm going to enter some data. Step number 9, and they're going to have us do some bullets and stuff for practice, which is what we did in our last chapter of our book. But in this case, we're going to do a lot more demoting and promoting. That means moving them in and moving them back. So step 9 says, position the mouse pointer in the second cell of the objective row. So the second cell, I'm actually already there. And I can type what they want me to type, which is retail computer sales. Notice I didn't press enter or anything. Step 10, position the insertion point in the second cell of the qualifications row. Step 11 says choose home paragraph bullets. So home, remember the paragraph group, bullets. And I need to type what they want me to type according to step 11, which is hardware, software. And then press enter like step 11 says. And it says the next bullet will need to be demoted, which means move towards the right. However, inside a table, you can't use the regular tab key, shift tab. So we have to do step 12. Choose home, paragraph, increase indent. Home, paragraph group, increase indent. And now I'm going to type according to step 13. And after the word peripherals, to get my new bullet, I just press enter. So now we're going to need to promote the last bullet, which means to go back to the left. So step 14, choose home, paragraph, decrease indent. Now it's back to the other level. Step 15 says type the following list, remembering to use increase indent button to demote, which means move it to the right when you need to. So the trick to this is you type sales, you press enter. Now I need to do my home, paragraph, increase indent, and I need to type these 4 bullets. So I'm going to start typing those 4 bullets. So I paused the video briefly in order to just type the rest for you so you didn't have to watch me type it. Step number 16, position the insertion point in the second cell of the experience row. So we're going to do basically a very similar format here. I click in the next square next to the experience, and I'm going to type what they want me to type here, which is step 16, sales intern. Oops, forgot my 0. And it says type the remaining information here using the increase and decrease indent as needed. So I'll do the first one here, the pre-sales one, and then I will pause the video while I type the rest, and then we'll go from there. I just don't want you to have to see me type it all. I'm not the fastest typist. So remember, I click bullets now. That's what gives me this nice little black one. I type pre-sales. I press enter. Now I need to move into the right, home, paragraph, increase indent. I type prepared demonstrations. And right here is often where students get a little stumped. They know that the sales bullet needs to go back to the left, but what they forget to do is press enter first. Make sure you're on the blank line, and it has the symbol that needs to go left. So it's home, paragraph, decrease indent. I'm going to pause the video while I do the rest of the typing, but that's the basic pattern you do to get through the remainder of step 17. As you can see, it's got a bit of typing. So I'm just going to handle that without you needing to watch me type at my slow speed, because I'm not the best. So I'm going to pause while I type it. Be back with you in just a moment. Okay, so I finally got all that typing in, and now it's going to go ahead and do step 18. It says click in the last row. So that's this very first square of the last row, and type education. And you can press tab if you want to go to the next square, or click in the next square, and I'm just going to type what you see in step 19. So that was a bit of typing, but it's good to practice the bullets that we did in chapter 1. Step 20. Choose File Print to view your document in the print screen. Now on the Mac, you don't get a built-in preview. It's a little bit different. But if I could click File and I click Print, you get a nice little preview here of what it's going to look like. So that's all they want you to see is notice that the resume is too high on the page, a lot of white space up here, but even more white space down here. So we're going to fix that to do what's called vertical center alignment for the entire page. So step 21 first says to do this little back button in the upper left. 22 says choose layout. In the page setup group, we need to go over here and click this funny dialog box launcher. Now, if you're on a Mac, you don't normally have those dialog box launchers, so you can use the menus at the top of the screen. You'll use the menu, such as format, something of that nature. I forget exactly which menu it is. Sorry about that. Step 22 is we clicked our dialog box launcher. So click the layout tab and choose center. So layout here in the page vertical alignment, We're going to switch from top to center. Then I click OK. The book doesn't have you do it, but I like students to do this. If we go to File Print now, you can see the difference. It's balanced. Same amount of white space here as there is here. That was step 22. That's what all that was about, the vertical alignment. Step 23 says save it and then close it. So I don't have to do save because mine's auto saving, but you could just click save while you're in here and then do close. That was file save, file close. I'm going to move on to the next portion of the book here by using the little down arrow. Formatting with border, shading, and style. So here's where we're going to take and add some real beauty to our table. Borders, shading, and styles can enhance the readability of a table, and they add pizzazz. Whenever you click in a table or select cells, rows, or columns, the Contextual Design tab appears. The features you'll need to modify your table's formatting are located in the Design ribbon, Design tab of that. Just to quickly tell you without reading all this, borders are the lines around the boxes. Shading is color in the background of the squares. And they also have memory. So if you can find them on the home ribbon also. Since I don't have a document open, you can't see it yet, but they have a little bit of memory, which means the last border or the last shading color you chose will be what it remembers for next time. That only applies when Word is still open. If you exit Word and go back in, it resets to the defaults. Okay, so you can also remove borders from a table. So as you can saw in the previous resume we just did, that the borders in print preview were going to show up. You wouldn't want that to be that way when you send your resume to the real employer. So you would want to remove the borders, it's called. Okay? So just like regular text, you can also use formatting tools on the Home tab to do format tables. You know, like format the font, add bold, italic, underline, make the font bigger, smaller. All that stuff still applies, but that's more text related, not table related. There is borders and shading on the home ribbon though. Okay. Develop your skills W2D4. In this exercise, we're going to open an existing document, do a save as to it, and then do some formatting. Okay. And then finally, we'll convert part of a table to text and then back. So it says, navigate to your Word Chapter 2 folder, open W2D4 job contacts, save it with the name W2D4 job contacts revised. We want to get used to this pattern because we're going to use this pattern a lot in this book. You're going to do it in all the review exercises, at least 4 exercises to 5 per chapter. You're going to do this type of thing where we open their file, do a save as to save it into the same folder, but just tweak the name a little bit. So I'm going to show you my technique for doing that. I do File, Open. I click this PC. I have to navigate my way in. I'm in my Documents folder, but I have a little bit further to go. Your folder might be in the list here. You might be lucky. Or if I do Browse, I see this similar list, but just in a little bit different window. So I'm going to click here, Office. Here's my Office student files. Word, remember we're in Chapter 2 now. And they want me to open W2, D4, job contacts, this one here. Now immediately I can do the save as. File. In my version it says save a copy. That's only because I'm linked to online storage. You're not doing that maybe at the moment, I'm not sure. All I have to do is go here where the file name is. Now remember, if you're used to being in the box, I can just click Browse. It's basically the same. Word Chapter 2, here's the file name. I'm going to click right after the existing file name. I want a cursor. I don't want it to stay in blue. So I can just add on the one word they want, revised. That's the only change they're making. The rest of the file name stays the same. If you were to leave that in blue, you lose a lot of that wording. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save. You'll notice the new name is up here. Job Contacts Revised. Okay. Step number 2, use Control-A to select the entire document. So Control-A. If you're on Mac, that's Command-A. Okay. Then choose Insert Tables, Table, Convert Text to Table. So that sounds wordy, but Insert, Tables Group, Table, Convert Text to Table. This is really cool. What you do need to notice is they set this up with tabs already. Each one of those arrows means tabs. That's how it's already guessing that it needs 10 columns and 6 rows. Okay? In the dialog box that appears, leave all the default settings and click OK. So that's step number 3. And there we go. It now formatted into the nice little boxes of a table for us. Okay. Step 5, if necessary, click the move handle in the upper left corner of the table to select the entire table. They're just not sure if anybody clicked away, but as a reminder, it's this little icon in the upper left, 4-headed arrow. Step 5, choose Table Tools Design, Borders. So another My Machine, it's Table Design, Borders Group, Borders Button. So click this arrow to get all the choices and choose No Border. Now you don't see any lines. Step 5 says you may see grid lines within the table, but they won't print. They're just there to guide you. The Borders menu button on the Design tab provides the option to turn grid lines on or off. So I like having grid lines personally. Table Design actually it's not Table Design, it's on the Layout. Table Layout ribbon on the left side in the Table Group View grid lines. I like seeing those dotted lines because it really reminds me that a table's there. So I like to see mine on. If you don't like them, you just click View Grid Lines again. It's turned off. It's a little on-off button. Okay. Step 6, select the first row of the table. So remember, if I point out here and it's a nice left arrow, I can click once. It highlights the whole first row without me having to drag over it. And it says choose Table Design, Borders. So that's back to Table Design, Borders Group, Borders menu button. So when you say menu button, it's got to have that little arrow. And choose outside borders. This one here, outside borders. So put a box just around the first row, but not the little lines in between each column. Step 7, keep the first row selected. Choose Table Design, Table Styles, Shading. So Table Styles is the group name. Table Design, group name, Table Styles, Shading menu button. And here's where it gets a little tricky. So the book's showing you a nice little model. They want us to choose gray, accent 3, darker 25%. What you first need to know is if you point to any of these and wait a second, it gives you the name of the color. And if you look in the book, we're going over to the gray column, which is, and sometimes they'll tell you in the book, they'll tell you it's, 6th column, blah, 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 row down. But in the book, they're showing you it's this one next to the bottom. And when you get used to the pattern, you'll kind of notice how it works. Don't worry about the text. We're going to change text color at some point, or if we don't, the table style will do it for us. So table style here, step 9. Make sure the insertion point is in the table. So just click somewhere in your table. Okay. Then hover your mouse over. I just want to make sure they didn't have us change text color. No, they didn't. And it says navigate, make sure your cursor's in the table and find Table Design, Table Styles. So these things are table styles. And if you just point to them, you'll see a live previews. Now that doesn't happen on the Mac, okay, just to let you know. Step 10 says click the More button to display the full gallery of styles. On a Mac, you have a button right around here that with an arrow pointing down. That's the More button. On Windows, it's this arrow here in the bottom right. Click it and you can see all these. These are really cool. Step 11 says choose Grid Table 5 Dark Accent 1. So these are grid table category. Grid Table 5 might be the 5th row. So row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it says Dark Accent 1. So Accent 1 is this blue one. See Grid Table 5 Dark Accent 1. And all I have to do is click once. Step 12 says select the first row of the table. And look at how beautiful that made that. It's a little bit much for me, but it's still pretty though. I'm going to point to the right of the first row for step 12 to select it. Click once. Choose Home. Go to your font menu button where it says Calibri Body. And they want me to choose Century Gothic. Now, if you didn't know, a fun way, if you don't like to scroll the list, is if you press the letter C and then E on your keyboard, it jumps you to that part of the alphabet a little faster and you have less scrolling. So here's Century Gothic. And I changed the font to the first row. It says save the file, but leave it open. So I'm just going to save it. And now we're going to convert a table back to text. Okay. Now you'll separate the header information on the resume from the rest of the table without changing the way it looks. Open W2D3 Stella resume. Now we don't need to do the save as that they're going to ask us to do. It's really not necessary. Let's go to File, Open. You'll notice in your recent list, Stella resume. It should be right over there in your recent list, and just click it. So we technically have two files open, and on my machine, for some reason, I'm just going to go ahead and get that to snap over there the way I want it to. So you might notice down here on your W in the taskbar, you have two different files open. Really handy to be able to do that. It says select the entire step 15. As I mentioned, I'm going to skip the save as of step 14. Step 15, I'm going to click it to the left of the top row to select the first row. Step 16, I'm going to choose Table Tools, Layout. So this time, because it's already a table, I have to go to Table Layout over here. In the data group, convert to text. And we can leave it on paragraph marks, I believe. Yeah. Step 17, leave it on paragraph marks and just click OK. Now that part's no longer in the table. Okay. So remove table borders. Now that we have an idea about table borders, we can remove the default borders on the resume to give it a sleeker look. Step 18, click the move handle to select the table. Boom. Step 19, choose Table Tools or Table Design based upon the version you have. Borders Group, Borders menu button. Once again, no border. Now remember, I have grid lines on, and just to prove to you, if I go to File Print, you'll see those lines don't show up. Okay. I'm going to click my back button. It says save and close the resume. So save, file, close. Because I have the other file open, it comes right back. I'm going to move on to the next portion of the book. We're rolling like Chuck Wagon. Freshness. Sorting data in a table. When sorting data in a table, you can choose to sort one or more columns in ascending or descending order and specify whether the first row of the table is a header row. The header row will not be sorted with the rest of the data. So that's the importance of the header row. The header row tells us what data is under it. We don't want it to sort with the data. We only want the data to sort. So it's really important when we get into that dialog box to make sure that our header row is checked. You can sort a table by up to 3 levels. For example, say you have a table containing a column for city, state, and zip. You can sort the table first by state, then by city within each state, and then by zip code within each city. Really cool. So in this exercise, we're going to sort data in this file so we can easily locate information. And it's going to be sorted by city and then by company name. You can also sort a table by company name if you're looking for a particular company. Just depends how you want to sort it. It says, before we begin, make sure our job contacts revised should still be on the screen. If it's not, just be sure to do File Open and bring it back. It's in your Word Chapter 2 folder. With the insertion point in the table, I'm doing step number 2. Once again, this is exercise W2D5 of Develop Your Skills. With the insertion point in the table, so just make sure your cursor is somewhere on the table. It doesn't matter where. We're going to go to Table Layout. So for me, it's Table Layout way over here on the right. In the Data Group, Sort. And you'll notice it highlighted the table for you. That's really magical. Step 3, in the Sort By field, click the menu button and choose City. Now, if for some reason this doesn't say CO name or give you words like city and stuff, you got to make sure header row is checked. That's the most important thing. They ask you to check it later. I always have people check it at the beginning, because if you don't see the choice for city here from this drop down, the reason is you don't see it is because header row is likely not checked or you selected incorrectly. So I'm going to click city. Step 4 says in the then by, click this drop down and choose CO name. Okay. This will sort the company names alphabetically within each city. It says notice the header row button in the bottom left corner of the dialog box. This option indicates that a table has a header row. They should have told you to look for that at the beginning just in case header row was not turned on. What that basically means is when the black dot is here, it ignores the first row because that's what are the labels that you might want to sort by. Okay, so what I want us to do real quick is just notice the data, how we're sorting by city. So look at the cities real quick. These Elriras want to be together, right? They want to be first. And then within each Elrira, Emily here at the bottom should come before Frank because the second thing we sort by within each city is the company. So let's see when I click OK if that actually happens. Freshness, we got the Elriras together and we got Emily before Frank. We got the two Lakewoods together. We got Central before Marty. So I can trust that my sort worked. Keep in mind, the book doesn't, they're about to tell you here in this tip, as new rows are added to the bottom of the table, you have to resort again. It's not going to magically sort itself because you sorted it once. You have to sort it if you add any new data in. So some people, if it's one row of data you're going to add in, maybe you insert the row because you can see alphabetically where it goes. That would be maybe easier than sorting it again, but that's up to you. As a reminder, if you need to insert a row, you can right-click in the row, and you can go to Insert, and you can choose row above, row below. So that's how you can do it. Okay? Or in the last square of the table, if you press Tab, you automatically get one at the bottom. Step 6 says save, but leave the file open as I move on to the next portion of the chapter. Working with print and print preview. So we're near the tail end of the chapter here because they're not covering really something specifically about tables. The print command and print preview features are available in Backstage View. Here you can choose various ways to print your document, and you can use the print preview feature to see how your document will look when printed. You can also use the printer selection menu to export the document as a PDF file. Importantly, thing to note here is if you are on a Macintosh, a lot of these steps are not going to play very well for you. You just kind of have to do your best to kind of examine how it's going to work on your machine. So I apologize. This book was written for Windows. It's a little bit more popularly used with MS Office and taught that way. So unfortunately, the Max print doesn't give you the same commands in the same places. So this is more of a demo if you happen to be on a Mac, but try to find similar things on your Mac if you do happen to have one. Okay, so I'm going to do step 1. It says choose File Print. So File Print shows me this nice looking table. Take a moment to explore the options by clicking them to see what choices are available. So what they basically mean is going down the left-hand side. Do not click this because it starts spitting out on paper immediately. Number of copies makes sense. The printer you're using. So my machine's not hooked up to a printer yet, so I probably need to fix that at some point. How much of your document do you want to print? Do you want to print all pages or a page range? So I can click here and put in, I only want, say, page 2, if there's 2 pages. I can type in the number. Also here, I can click different things that I might want to print. Okay. Here, one-sided or not, I don't have a regular duplex printer, but if you click here, see how it says manually on both sides, because I don't actually have a duplex or printer that prints on both sides automatically. Collated, it shows you what that means, is if this is a multi-page document, you get one set of pages 1, 2, 3, another set of pages 1, 2, 3 based upon number of copies. This makes no difference if you print one copy, absolutely 0. Orientation, you'll notice they have this on landscape for us automatically. That means that our paper is more sideways. If you click here, you can switch it to portrait. That's what it looks like in portrait. Click here, switch it back to landscape. Same here, size of your paper, margins, how many pages per sheet of paper. So those are some of the various options you have, and you can get deeper in if you ever need to. Printer properties, page setup here. It says in step 3, if directed, click the print button. I don't normally have you print things. So in my case, I would just have you make sure you save your changes. You can click your back button, and it says you can exit Word altogether because that's basically the end of this chapter. The only thing that comes up here at the very end is giving you some tips about your resume. Since this is more of a computer teaching class, I'm not going to go over the tips for your resume for you. You can read them at your leisure. Remember, if you want to get to the practice exercises at the end of this chapter, which is what I love for students to do, that's what we really want you to do, is get a lot of individual practice. You can do them on your own. I'll give you time in class to do them as well. Hopefully each class will get like an hour, but you can use this next button here to go down. They usually give you a little quiz. I can go down a little bit, get past the quiz, and remember these review exercises. The green ones are called reinforce your skills. If you get down through the third exercise, you can get to the apply your skills. You do not need to do the ones after that called extend your skills, but if you want to try any, feel free. So I hope this video will help you get through Word Chapter 2, working with tables. Enjoy. Thank you so much.